Welcome to your deep dive. Looks like we're diving into this sensing with soul idea today,
Hmm.
and you've brought some great talks by Rob Burbea. We've got discussions on the imaginal, hermeneutics, and meditation, and how soul making kind of intersects with Buddhist thought. Ready to see what we dig up?
Absolutely. Burbea brings in so many threads philosophy, psychology, and spiritual practice. It's going to be a really rich exploration.
Yeah, when I first ran into the term imaginal, I thought it was just like a fancy way of saying imagination. But Burbea's getting at something way deeper, right?
You're right on. It goes way beyond our everyday imagination. He's talking about sensing with soul. And it's not just what we see. It can be like all our senses, emotions, even awareness of the energy body.
Okay, now I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of lost. What's it even feel like to sense with the energy body? Does Burbea give us any examples we can, connect with?
He does. In one talk, he's describing working with a yogi who's exploring some difficult memories. And as the yogi went deeper, this image of this sacred prostitute emerged for Burbea. It wasn't like a visual thing, but more a felt sense, an energetic shift that held a lot of meaning. And ultimately, it pointed toward healing and transformation.
Wow, that's powerful. It makes me think of how sometimes a piece of art or music can hit you on such a visceral level. It's almost like your soul is being touched. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
You've got it. Burbea would say those moments when we're deeply moved, when we feel awe or wonder or even, a deep unsettling, those are glimpses of the imaginal kind of breaking through, like a doorway into a richer, more meaningful way to experience the world.
So how do we open that door more often? It can't be just random, right? There've got to be ways to cultivate this kind of sensing.
Yeah, you're right. It's not about waiting around. Burbea emphasizes awareness, especially of our energy body. He suggests that by bringing awareness to our subtle energy, we can actually help to kind of ignite the imaginal.
But how do we even become aware of something we can't see or touch? This energy body seems so elusive.
Think of it like tuning into a subtle frequency. You can't see radio waves, but with the right equipment, you can get a whole world of music and information right. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, they can help us refine our perception and become more attuned to these subtle energies.
So it's like paying attention to those sensations that usually slip past our awareness, like the tingling in your hands when you're excited, or the tightness in your chest when you're feeling anxious.
Exactly. Burba encourages us to notice those subtle signals, not just in meditation, but in our daily lives. He talks about noticing the energy signatures of things like sensing the energy of a tree or the subtle shift in the atmosphere when you walk into a room.
I'm starting to see how this connects to the idea of soul making. It's like by engaging with these subtle energies, we're shaping our inner world.
I love that. And this is where another concept comes in hermeneutics.
Now, that sounds a little academic. Not sure I fully get how interpreting text ties into this soul making thing.
Well, traditionally, hermeneutics is about interpreting texts, but Burbee takes it a step further. He talks about interpreting existence itself. He's saying meaning isn't fixed. It's something we actively co-create through our experiences and interpretations.
So instead of searching for one truth, we're acknowledging that there are many truths, depending on our perspective and how we engage with the world.
Exactly. Think about it. Has your understanding of something ever changed based on a new experience? That shift, that evolving understanding, that's hermeneutics at play. It's a reminder that we're not just receiving information passively, but we're actively creating meaning.
That makes a lot of sense. But if everyone's creating their own meaning, doesn't that just lead to chaos? How do we find any common ground?
That's where reverence comes in. Burbea emphasizes approaching the world with awe and wonder, recognizing the sacredness in everything, even in differing perspectives. He shares this beautiful quote from the Jewish tradition: "If there is no reverence, there is no wisdom." It's a good reminder that humility and openness are key in this multifaceted world.
Sounds like we need a delicate balance. We're encouraged to be playful and explore different interpretations, but also hold a deep respect for the mystery and complexity of existence.
Exactly. It's this dance between exploration and reverence, between personal meaning making and acknowledging the interconnectedness of all things. And that brings us to another key element: the role of dukkha, or suffering, in this process.
I was wondering when we'd get to that. Not exactly the most cheerful topic, but it seems like Burbee sees suffering as essential to soul making.
Right, he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff. He sees dukkha as an opportunity for growth, transformation, and a deeper understanding.
So it's not about seeking out suffering, but recognizing its potential to teach us something.
Absolutely. Burbee even suggests that imaginal images can come directly from our experience of dukkha, offering a path to healing and insight. It's like that alchemical process, turning lead into gold, right? We can use our suffering as fuel for transformation, forging a stronger, more resilient soul.
This is starting to get a bit heavy. Maybe we can lighten things up a bit before we move on. Burbea does share some real-life examples of sensing with soul, right?
He does, and they offer a really beautiful glimpse into how these concepts play out in our everyday lives. Ready to hear about the student who offered food as an act of love and healing?
I am all ears. Tell me more.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Rob Burbea and the Imaginal. We were talking about the role of suffering in soul making, but as promised, let's get to that student and her act of love.
Yes, please. Tell me about that example. I think we need it after that Duca deep dive.
Okay, so this student's teacher was going through cancer treatment, and she felt this urge to offer him food. It wasn't just, about feeding him. It was an act of love and care and deep connection. As she was preparing the food, the words, my body is your body, came to her.
Wow, that is so powerful. It really speaks to that merging of self and other that can happen in those moments.
Exactly. It shows how even a simple act, like making a meal, can become so infused with soul when it's approached with the right awareness. It becomes an expression of something deeper.
It reminds me of when I was visiting my grandmother in the hospital. Just holding her hand felt like this incredible exchange of energy, a silent conversation.
That's beautiful. Burbee talks about how we can catch the imaginal from others, how their way of seeing us can really spark our own soul making.
So it's not just about our own efforts, but also being open to those moments of connection, those energetic exchanges that can happen between people.
Absolutely. It really highlights how important relationships are, how our interactions can be such powerful catalysts for growth.
That makes me think of that example Burbee gives about receiving support from Catherine with a creative project.
Yes. It shows how someone else's perception, their way of seeing us imaginally, can help us shift our own perspective and find deeper meaning.
In that example, Catherine didn't even really give any specific advice, right? She just kind of reflected back to Burbee a way of seeing his work that he hadn't fully grasped.
Yeah, that's right. It shows the power of deep listening, of holding space for someone's creative process and reflecting back the beauty and potential that they might not even see in themselves yet.
Okay, so we've seen how the imaginal can emerge through simple actions, through connection with others, and even through our struggles. What about those of us who don't have a regular meditation practice or aren't surrounded by, spiritually minded people? Are there other ways to cultivate this sensing with soul?
Well, Burvis suggests that spending time in nature can be really helpful. He's got this deep reverence for the natural world and believes that immersing ourselves in its beauty, its rhythms, can help us connect to our own inner landscape.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Whenever I feel lost or overwhelmed, taking a walk in the woods really helps. Clears my head,
Yeah.
brings me back to myself.
Exactly. It's like nature's a mirror, reflecting our inner world back to us.
And it's not just about passively observing, is it? Burbea talks about really engaging with nature.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing the details, the energy, the aliveness.
You got it. He wants us to pay attention to those little shifts in our perception when we're in nature, those moments of awe and wonder or connection. Those are glimpses of the imaginal at play.
I've always loved going to art museums and reading mythology. Is there a connection there with the imaginal?
Oh, absolutely. Burbee believes art and mythology can be powerful doorways to the imaginal realm. They give us this peek into the collective unconscious, the archetypes and symbols that have shaped human consciousness for so long.
So it's not just about admiring a painting or a myth, but about letting those images and stories spark something in us, connect us to something bigger.
Exactly. He even encourages us to experiment with our own creative expression, using writing, painting, music, whatever, to give form to the imaginal.
So it's like a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Absorbing these potent images from the outside world and expressing our own inner world creatively.
That's a great way to put it. It's this dance between receptivity and expression, allowing ourselves to be inspired by the imaginal and actively shaping it into something new.
But if we're talking about sensing with soul, isn't there a danger of getting lost in our own little world? How do we connect this practice to something bigger, like a sense of purpose or service?
That's such an important question. Burbee doesn't want us to just get lost in our own heads. He talks about embodying these values, bringing them into our daily lives, our actions.
So it's not enough to have these beautiful inner experiences. We have to let them guide how we live, how we interact, how we contribute.
Right. It's about bridging that gap between the inner and outer, the mystical and the mundane.
He even uses that term soul duty. suggesting that sensing with soul can reveal our unique purpose, our contribution to the world.
It's like we each have this song to sing, a story to tell, a gift to offer, and sensing with soul can help us figure out what that is and bring it to life.
It makes me wonder, is sensing with soul just another way of talking about finding your purpose?
That's a great question, and maybe one we explore in the last part of our deep dive.
I'm ready when you are. So we've been on this journey with Rob Burbea exploring sensing with soul. We've covered the imaginal, hermeneutics, soul making, even the role of suffering. Now I want to dig into this purpose question. Is sensing with soul just like another way to say find your purpose?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Burbea doesn't quite say they're the same, but he does say that sensing with soul can help us find our place in the world.
This whole imaginal thing is like we've been given this treasure map, all these tools and ideas, but we have to go discover the treasures ourselves.
Love that analogy. And it really highlights how Burbea emphasizes direct experience. He's not giving us a set of beliefs, more like an invitation to explore and experiment, see what clicks with our own soul.
So the real why of this is the journey itself, opening up to the mystery of existence, experiencing the world as sacred and connected, seeing that soulfulness everywhere.
You got it. It's about realizing we're not just isolated individuals, but a part of something much, much bigger.
But Burby doesn't want us getting lost in some fluffy spiritual bubble,
Yeah.
right? He's clear that sensing with soul should have real-world effects.
Totally. He challenges us to actually live these values, bring them into our actions every day. He talks about how sensing with soul can affect our choices, our relationships, our work in the world.
So it's about taking those inner insights and letting them guide us in how we show up in the world.
Exactly. Bridging the inner and outer worlds, the mystical and the everyday.
And he even uses that term soul duty, right? Like sensing with soul reveals our purpose, our contribution.
Yeah, it's like we each have our song to sing, our story to tell, our own gift, and sensing with soul helps us find it, bring it to life.
But it can't always be easy to hear that song, to tell that story. What about when we feel lost, unsure of our purpose? Does Burby have any advice for those tough times?
Oh, he knows it's not always smooth sailing. There might be darkness, confusion, even suffering. But he says those challenges are chances to grow and transform. He even says that the dark night of the soul is a necessary part of the process.
Like those times when we feel the most lost, those are the times that lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
Right. It's when we're vulnerable, when our old ways break down, that the imaginal can really come through, showing us new paths.
But it's not a journey to take alone.
Nope. Burby talks about finding support, connecting with others on the same path. He talks about Sangha, that sense of community, as a source of strength.
Like having fellow travelers sharing their wisdom, cheering you on, reminding you that you're not alone.
Exactly. It's through those connections, through that shared journey, that we find the real meaning of compassion and interconnectedness.
So what does all this mean for you listening? What's your reason for exploring the imaginal?
That's the question, right? And only you can answer it. What calls to you? What are you searching for? What truths are waiting?
Remember, it's not about finding the right answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about being curious, open, and willing to step into the unknown.
And as you go on this journey, keep Burbia's words in mind. Sensing with soul is a gift to yourself, to others, and to the world.
So go explore. Let the imaginal be your guide. May your journey be full of wonder and meaning. And may you feel that deep connection to the soulfulness that's in everything.